Yesterday we told you about the challenge filed by Boddentown voters against newly elected MLAs Mark Scotland and Dwayne Seymour. Well, tonight News 27's Kenneth Bryan talks to the elections office about what to expect if there is a by-election.
The challenge is now in the hands of the courts. So what will happen if they decide in the favor of Mr. Solomon and the 5 others who filed the challenge?
One of the things I want to see happen is the by-elections.
Deputy Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Crawford Scott, gave us an idea of what could happen.
If there was an order that there would be a by-election, then what would happen as a consequence of that is that the governor would order the by-election to be held, and then on polling day the voters would go to the polls just as they did on May the 20th.
Mr. Scott says it will be just a smaller version of the May election.
What we have in the Cayman Islands, the general elections are really 6 elections in the 6 electoral districts. They all happen to be held on the same day, but each district has a specific election.
So what that means is Boddentown will have an election of its own if the by-election is ordered, and by law they would be allowed time off to vote. And if you are worried about the expense of it,
I just feel like it's a waste of the government money, that's all. And
Mr. Scott says right now would probably be the best time, if any.
A by-election shortly after general election is probably the cheapest by-election that you can have. And the reason I say that is that we've just been through an extensive training program for all of the returning officers, the deputy returning officers, the presiding officers, and the poll clerks. So we have a number of trained personnel in all of the electoral districts right now.
And if the governor calls for a by-election by the way of the court's decision, Mr. Scott says the elections office will be ready. Kenneth Bryan, News 27.
So now that the challenge has been filed, what are people saying about it? News 27 crews took to the streets today to get residents' reaction.
They allow them to go through the election, so I believe they should let them say.
I don't think they should be challenged because the public already voted them in. Plus, I think it's something they should have been taken care of before they actually were allowed to actually run for office.
Well, if they wasn't qualified, they shouldn't have been put in from the beginning. If the governor gave them authorization to be in the office, then they had to be qualified.
I think it's a waste of time, personally. I mean, because if they've been accepted and put in already, they went through all the process and everything done, I didn't see what's wrong now. They should have thought of that before they made people vote for them.
Are you saying that somebody should have noticed that beforehand?
Yeah, before, because right now, even if they go back and do another vote, set of votes, they will get back in because they put them in one time. Why not put them in a second time?
It's the right thing to do. If we make a constitution, then we should uphold it. And if the common man does something wrong out here on the streets and he's prosecuted for it and he's taken into court, and I feel that something like the constitution is a big law and should be upheld.